Lisa. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
I am doing a fantastic. So I have to ask you, so how are things in Winnipeg these days?
Well, things are very quiet in Winnipeg. We are stuck at home under restrictions, so hopefully that's going to end on Friday. And but the weather is beautiful here, so I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to hanging out in my backyard later today.
yeah, it is beautiful, warm and sunny. And it's interesting enough, you're the second person from Winnipeg that I had on the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had a gentleman named David Starr on there. He actually has an app that's called
Yeah.
Divine Ray. So it's kind of like a TikTok for spiritual people.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a very very kind of a cool app. So I had him on it, and it's like at first when I got connected with him, I thought he was from like United States, but he's from Winnipeg. I was like, you're a fellow Canadian, of course, got to have you on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Winnipeg's a good city.
yeah, it's really changing. I know it's really changing and developing. It's a great little area. Um, but I'm really happy that you're on the show today, and I have to say a little thank you to Jackie Dennison for connecting us. And I just had her on the show not too
Okay.
long ago, and yeah, fabulous lady. So um, I really want to kind of talk to you about mediumship too as well. So let's talk a little bit about how you kind of got started, and about when you were 3 years old, if you still remember those experiences.
hmm Probably the first experience I had, I was on a train and I used to live in Calgary, Alberta. They have the C train, so it's kind of like their subway. And I went through this tunnel and it was by a graveyard. And then I started to see faces come out of the walls of the tunnel. That's my very first memory of spirit.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then I told my grandmother, I was with her, like, I can see those people. And she said, we can, our family, we can see those people. So I was able to see people that other people couldn't see. And my family was, supportive because my mom has a little bit of psychic and mediumship, and my grandmother does. So it wasn't, it was scarier when I was a teenager, but when I was little, I was very innocent. So,
Yeah, I guess so. Like you really, I guess, you're at that age, you have that innocence, and it's like, okay, it's like normal. And but the great thing is that you had that type of family support, because I've heard from other mediums and psychics, like they didn't have a lot of support. And it's like, oh, it's normal. This is what we do. It's, this is part of your family. It's like your grandmother and your mother both had these gifts, and it was kind of something new. Now, I know you had a strong connection with your grandmother. Is she the one who really kind of taught you about mediumship and psychic and what your gifts were all about?
she she taught me in some ways just being able to talk to them, not out loud, but within my own mind. And she taught me to not be fearful of them, but she taught me even more after she passed away.
Okay,
And
interesting.
mhm. And I also believe that after she passed away, she made my mediumship abilities way stronger than they were prior to her passing.
So what do you think that was?
I think she really wanted this for me. She really wanted me to be able to help people and uplift people and change people's lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So when did she first come to you? Like, I know I've heard from other psychics, usually in a dream. Did she come to you in a dream, or did she kind of like an apparition where she's just kind of, you're in the kitchen and you turn to your left and there's grandmother? Like, how'd that happen?
Um, I was driving in a car and I was sitting at a stoplight, and it was just like a normal, regular, everyday. I was coming home from work and she appeared next to me in the passenger seat of my vehicle. And
That is
she,
freaky. Wow.
yeah. And so I could feel her. It was so like I could kind of see, I could see light, but it wasn't, it was translucent. And I could feel her and I recognized her. and I put my hand on the little gear shift, and then I felt her hand like touch over top of my hand. And then she, said to me or thought to me, now is the time for you to be a medium. And this was in 2013.
Okay.
And I just said to her, like, Grandma, like, I have a full-time job. I was a social worker at the time. And so I had a really great job. I wasn't looking to do any mediumship professionally. And yeah, going through some, rough times, with my then partner, I was exiting that relationship. So it just wasn't the right time. And she just said, if you don't believe me, take my picture.
Okay.
So I was driving by this point because it was at a stoplight, and I just hit the kind of photo button on my iPhone and just took like a series of like 100 photos. Just like if you hold it down, it just does like that burst of photos. And so I made it home and I was shaking. I was just like, oh my God, like this is so weird. I'm driving home from work, and now all of a sudden, what am I going to do? And
Yeah.
so I just started flipping through these photos, and I got to a photo, and there was, we're not just talking like a little kind of light. It was like a column of light shining from the roof of the passenger seat all the way in through the middle. Like it wasn't through the side of the windows. It was like the brightest light I've ever seen. And I was like, game on, Grandma. If you, because I told her, like she said to me, if you don't believe me, take my picture. So I did. And then after that moment, my mediumship abilities were far beyond what they had been before.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even, they weren't even the same. And I really believe she kind of stretched open that door from heaven and earth. And then she's been assisting me ever since,
Yeah. I was going to ask you, does she show up during your readings?
all the time.
She kind of shows up. She's in the background going, "Hey, it's reading time." So she kind of pops
Yeah.
in.
And sometimes if I'm, having a day where I feel like, oh, I could use some extra help, my grandma kind of steps in. I have a picture of her in both of the offices that I use, like not in the actual reading office, but my administrative part. And yeah, she helps me out, and she's taught me the best parts of what I do and how to deliver messages. She's just always been there in the background being my big supporter.
Big
So
supporter. Wow.
yeah.
That's so fascinating, so awesome. And it's amazing when you have a loved one, and it's like a calling. It's like they're kind of almost like she's one of your guides. Like she showed up just, and you couldn't have been born into the perfect family in that way, because if it's like a norm. It's like, psychic stuff. Yeah, no problem. But the fact
Hmm.
that she's supporting you after her death, and it's even more profound after her death versus when she was alive, and teaching you even more. I
Yeah.
think that's just incredible. Um, Now, with your abilities, now, are you basically a direct clairvoyant when you see your spirit, or you're more of a indirect, where you see it in your third eye?
I experience everything. It's like a full sensory experience for me. So I'm like seeing, tasting, feeling, touching, knowing, like it's like putting me in a virtual reality suit when I
Okay,
do the reading. So, um, and it all happens in different ways depending on the spirit that I connect with. But it's like not, I don't know. When I'm living my regular life, when I'm not doing mediumship, it's not like that at all. I'm just normal, everyday kind of gal raising kids.
yeah, I think that's a problem for a lot of people too. Is like ability to shut it off. It's
Mhm.
like, when you're on, you're on. It's like, okay, I'm going to work. I'm going to work. It's like you leave your work at work, and then you come home and be a regular person.
Yeah.
And it's almost interesting too. I just found that, I mean, the fact that you were a social worker, and I mean, that in itself kind of prepared you for this work too, because a lot of what you do now can transfer over into, because you are kind of doing social work.
Absolutely. And so I think that I'm able to sit with people in their grief and in the worst moments of their life that they're recalling or experiencing again when they connect with their loved ones. And I'm just able to hold space for them. And, I was doing social work, I think, for 14 years. So that's a long time and a lot of training to learn how to sit with people when they're experiencing any kind of trauma or stress. So it really made a difference in my mediumship as well, because not only did they get the messages, they also got the support. So,
Yeah, because
yeah.
you've seen it all. Like in social work, you've seen it all. Like, I mean, you see the good, the bad, the horrible,
Mhm.
extremely
Yeah.
horrible, and more extremely horrible stuff,
Yeah.
as social workers do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so amazing that that you bring these messages. Now, I want to talk about grief,
Yeah.
and it seems to be a common theme now that I'm noticing, even in my own readings now that I'm seeing with people, is about the healing and actually just dealing with grief. And it seems to be a lot of people have been suppressing it. And I wanted to get your take on that, because you deal with that on a constant level. And how do you, and what are maybe some of the messages that you kind of give to people about grief?
I've experienced deep grief before. Um, and traumatic grief. And I know that there's really no timeline for it. It kind of, makes me mad sometimes when society wants people to move on or wants them to work through it, or has like a timeline that, you must, after the first year, be better and or be okay. And one thing when I sit down with my clients, and I also give myself permission, is to just be wherever I'm at for that moment. And a loss, any type of loss, but, especially parents that have lost children, I feel like that is a grief that lasts a lifetime. And I feel like there's messages given to parents that, they need to move on. And it's really confusing, because when you lose a child, how do you, I mean, you have to go through the motions of life. And yes, there can be healing, but it's not up to anyone else who's never lost a child to really say that to someone. And so I really feel a lot of support. Like, I support a lot of parents that have lost their children. Grief doesn't have a timeline. I mean, and it can also have the same intensity for, let's say, if you lose a parent when you're 12 years old and then now you're 65, you can still have the same intensity of grief if you touch on it that you had when you were 12. I've seen, people who are in their 70s, cry like heavily during a reading, and they lost their parents when they were children, you know.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really, hoping you would talk about this, because I think it's really important, because I've seen it more and more often. And, the fact that there's no timeline on it, and it varies from individual to individual. And,
Mhm.
in the traumatic event of a parent losing a child, outliving their children, which is horrible. It's a horrible thing to live through. And yeah, like what are some of the common themes? Now, are you seeing, is there really a difference between somebody who, let's say, like an infant that's crossed over, let's say it was like 1 or 2, versus somebody who was 5 or 6? Now, are you able to communicate even though the child actually didn't have a voice at that time? Are you still be able to connect with that child's energy?
Absolutely. I feel like souls are timeless. They don't have an age, and they're able to see, hear, and experience their family even after their passing. So if an infant died at birth, let's say, and then the family kind of continues on and they have maybe another child, or they have a move or whatever, that infant, when that infant comes through in a reading, is able to describe what the family has done since its passing. So it shows that intelligence, despite not having, a voice, or a voice voice box or memories. So it's really validating that, for parents that have lost, babies, that those children still live on in that family and still know what's happening and going on.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because it's beyond the physical body. I think we get so stuck in, like you were saying, it's a soul. And a soul has been around. It's it's been around forever. So it's
Mhm.
not like it's like we still rationalize it's an infant, but no, the soul itself that incarnates into that physical body is timeless. And once you kind of understand that they still have an intelligence, I mean, they've had probably other lives here too as well, that they can
Mhm.
see that. I think that's so amazing. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about too as well is I know you're so busy right now. You have a lot of people. You have like this waiting list, and which is fantastic, which is absolutely phenomenal. I wanted to know if you're doing a lot more group readings just to get people in, just
Mm.
because there's such a demand.
So I do lots of different things. I guess some of it is kind of more like pre-pandemic. So I do like a workshop. Um, it used to be, yep, every other week, and it was called Heaven Can't Wait. So, and that's about not being able to wait on the waiting list. And yeah, Heaven Can't Wait. So it was for people on the waiting list who want a connection. And so I spend a day with them, like it's an entire day. And I teach them how they can connect for themselves. So how they can start to experience spirit for themselves. They don't need to be a medium to do that. And then in the afternoon, they get a message or like a reading for who they want to speak with. So it's for people that are on the wait list. And then like group events. And I do every Monday night, it's called Message Monday. And
Message
so
Monday.
Message Monday. Yeah. And so that's kind of like my gift to my community. Every Monday, I do readings via Facebook Live, and I've been doing that for 2 years. So people tune in. It's kind of like they say it's like a TV show, right? They tune in every Monday. And I usually get, between 500 and 800 people watching live, which I think is like amazing because I can't stay watching a live for more than 2 minutes. It's like, I have like that kind of like, yeah, just kind of like, oh, moving on. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
So, um,
it's the attention span, right?
yeah. So I feel like, and I have a group called Healing Together with Spirit on Facebook as well. And that group is for people that are grieving and needing support. So I kind of have these ways that I can support people while they're waiting for a reading. And if they really just need a message now, they can come to a Heaven Can't Wait seminar. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of the messages that you kind of see? I know that sometimes you can get like an overall theme and it kind of carries through a lot. Are there specific messages? Because I know like,
I think that lots of like reconciliation and making sure that things are okay between people is a theme that comes up a lot. I think sometimes with death we have a lot of regrets. And I think that's a theme, like people just really hold a lot of guilt and shame around maybe the circumstances around someone's passing, um, or a fight that they had shortly before the person passed away. And so this provides like a sense of closure. So, that's a theme. And also, spirit likes to connect with people here in the physical world. So, the signs or the symbols that they give people that they're around. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk about some of those signs and symbols. Like what
Yeah.
do you normally see? Or what do they see too as well?
Well, I have a thing that I ask people to do, and I really believe in it. And I ask people to come up with their own, sign that they would like to see and make it time limited. And so, say they want to see, I'm going to say an owl, and within 48 hours, their loved one should be able to show them that owl. Um, and you know what? It's amazing. Spirit really steps up to the plate. And Spirit has for me, like in some really amazing ways that way. So, do you mind if I just tell a quick story about
No,
that?
please do. Yeah. Everybody's
Yeah.
going to love stories. Yeah. Let's get
Yeah.
some good stories.
Okay. So I was teaching a class and giving this kind of instruction around, setting a sign. And I said, so right now I'm going to set a sign. It's going to be, I'm going to ask it's my partner that passed away. I'm going to ask her to show me some dog tags because I don't have them. I don't know where I don't have any. There's no possible way within 48 hours. So I was teaching this class of intuitives and I said, so that's what I'm going to ask. And I just kind of made up the dog tags, like just on the spot, right?
Something random, eh?
Something so random. And so I go home and, I tuck my kids into bed that night. And then, I'm watching TV. I go upstairs and I go to check on my daughter, so my youngest daughter, and at the bottom of her feet is a pair of dog tags. No word of a lie. It
What?
really happened. And they were dog tags, like they looked like somebody had like my kids don't know where they came from, but they were like kind of like they had a Canadian flag on them. They weren't actual dog tags, but they look like dog tags. And they had, they were dog tags, but they just had the Canadian flag on them. They didn't have any like words or anything on them. So I don't know where they came from. I don't know how they appeared. It took her under 12 hours to produce
Wow.
these dog tags. And then the same thing. So when I was explaining this to people on Message Monday, I just make stuff up. Like I'm like, okay, so I'm going to do it for you guys now. I want to see an ice cream. You got 24 hours. And then I came the next day, I picked my daughter up from school and she passes me this picture she drew and it's of an ice cream. And so I was able to take a picture of these things and show them to people and say, listen, like my daughter, not knowing that I had brought this up, drew me a picture of an ice cream cone.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love stories like that.
Yeah.
It's so, and it's such the power of spirit. Like it's amazing. I think a lot of people still have a hard time grasping the fact that spirit can actually manipulate stuff on this side here, and they can interact with us still, even though they're not in a physical body. They can still interact with the physical itself. And I always find those stories so fascinating. And I've heard countless stories where again it's mainly just like I wanted to see a robin, or I wanted to see a cardinal. Cardinals are a big one. And I had a friend of mine talk about that the other day, and she was saying, "Oh, I wanted to see a cardinal. I want a big sign." And no word of a lie, like it would happen so fast. She was driving and she just turned and she looked, and there was a truck with a huge cardinal drawn on the side of it. And it was like literally she wanted a big sign. So there was the big sign with a cardinal on it. And I always think those are so fascinating. And I always say to people, try it out. You have nothing to lose, but try it out. Like if you want a sign, try it out and see what happens. And I think we are so built for guidance, but we really don't know much about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I had another incident where it was Christmas Eve. I was in a motel and I was standing in the bathroom and I was kind of sad because it's not the Christmas that I really wanted, right? I ended up, going to visit a friend and I didn't have my family around. And I was standing in the bathroom and feeling sorry for myself and just kind of looking into the mirror, and a quarter fell out of the sky in the bathroom and hit me in the head. Like, so when people say, oh, they leave me dimes or they leave me pennies, or like people will talk about coins, sometimes, to be honest, I used to be skeptical and think, maybe it dropped out of their pocket and landed there and they want to make that a sign. But how a coin can fall from a cement ceiling and hit me in the head, then I really understood they're actually throwing them down from heaven. It can actually happen. And then probably about a month ago, I was like, okay, enough with the dimes and quarters. I want to see a penny because I haven't seen a penny in a long time because we don't have pennies in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And like 10 minutes later, there's a penny that shows up on my carpet. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So they can definitely leave coins.
That gives a whole new meaning to making it rain, right? It's like making it rain, like for sure. But maybe you should try like $100 bills, and maybe I should try that. I think I need some cash right now. So maybe, see if after this, I'm going to try that. I'm going to say, okay, all right, forget the dimes, forget the quarters. Let's get some $100 bills. See if that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go big or go home. Let's see what happens. I better be careful. I may say I must give him like $1,000 bills and like let's up the ante and see what
Yeah.
happens. I don't know. Do we even have $1,000 bills? Is there such a thing?
You know what? They just got rid of them. I read it in the news.
Oh
So
yeah,
they
yeah.
only
Because
have
isn't the mint out in Winnipeg? Like
it,
the it is, isn't it?
it is. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna ask for $1,000 bills now and see what happens, and we'll see from there. But yeah, one of the things I know I want to touch back on is talking about reconciliation.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of people, like you say, are struggling with words left unsaid. There's a lot of on things unsaid in that, and and that shame and that guilt, whether what are the circumstances, like you said, they have a fight or just they just had a bad relationship and now they didn't get to say that I loved you,
Hmm.
and or I'm sorry, you're forgiven. um do you find that it's mainly spirit that has the reconciliation part, or just both parties are just needing to say something, or is it just the people on living right now just have more regret because they didn't get to say, or is it just spirit that has a lot more regret, or is it like a 50-50?
Yeah. I would say spirit, because what I've been shown is they go through a life review. So they're able to see in their life, things that they could have done differently that might have turned out differently for everyone. And so I wouldn't say they're, um, I would say that they have grace for themselves and grace for the people here on the earth for their own actions and for the actions of others. And so they just want to extend that grace to their loved ones as well, because in the end, it's about love. And when you get up there, you realize that we're all about love and we're surrounded with love. And they want to pass that love on to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's quintessential when it comes down to it. The bare bones of this work is all about love and about
Mhm.
healing, and I find it so rewarding and so helpful to so many people. I think it's getting more and more prevalent now in mediumship, and is something that we're not just connecting with people from the other side, but we're also help with the healing with individuals, allowing them to express their wounds, their pain, but also give them some hope and faith, which is a really big thing. And I think it's so important right now that as a country, but also as in the world too as well. We just need a lot of hope, a lot of faith nowadays.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Now, are there any particular messages that you see from spirit that they're kind of they wanted to kind of broadcast it to the world? I know we talked about faith and love and stuff like that. Are there anything specific that they're seeing above and they're kind of going, you know what, we need to kind of put this out there a little bit more?
I mean, the thing that I really got in from spirit is, a download, I guess you could call it, um, is that, everything we do, whether that's, positive or negative, has a consequence. And that consequence isn't about punishment. It isn't about, anything bad, but really the consequence is knowing you will get to know at some point the ripple effect that that action has had. So if it's a positive action, when you go to heaven and you do this life review, you'll get to see the ripple effect of the positivity that you put out there. And that also includes like if you put out like negative things or hate or injustice, those things will come back to you too. And you will see the ripple effect of how that impacted everyone just from your actions. And I think they really want us to know that the more we operate out of love, the more love we're going to experience. We're going to see that ripple effect when we get up there. So,
Wow,
yeah,
that is really profound. So I just want to just revisit that, because I think that's so profound, like the ripple effect. Because I think we as humans don't understand there is like, there is that ripple effect. And if you were treating someone bad and how that affected them, but it's not just them, it's the other person they're in contact with, and then the other person they're in contact with, or the people they're in contact with, and then they affect that person, and then the other person is affected, and now they're upset and angry and sorrow, and it just becomes, like you said, like this ripple effect and this domino effect that we see. And I think that's really profound, and I really think that we should really look at that, like, okay, let's pause for a second. Okay, what could I have done better? Let's take that review. Maybe I can, if I'm putting out love, what's the ripple effect of that? And I think we don't see that too often. I see we're always so used to seeing the negative effects of it.
yeah,
I don't think we see the positive effects of it. And I think that could be so profound.
yeah. And it is, and it's how I've decided to live my life. And I volunteer with cancer patients, and I have since 2012. So since I started doing what I do. And, every week I do things in my community, like put hampers together for, families. I donate to lots of different organizations, like readings, so that people can, experience this. And I just make it my everyday thing to give as much love and joy that I can, because there is a ripple effect. And I want that to continue, not just so that I have a great life review,
Let's be honest here.
but it genuinely comes from my heart. And I feel like those things are just as important as the readings that I do.
Yeah, like I always say, you just don't know how you can affect somebody. It's always nice to know, and I think sometimes me personally, I'd always like to know, but you just don't know what that kindness, that one act of kindness can do. Like really, that one act of kindness could change a whole person's life, but not just one person, but several people down there. But even if it's just that
Yes.
one individual. Like I used to work at a cancer support center myself. I used to do Reiki therapy for them.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it too much longer because I was getting burnt out, but it was a beautiful experience. And like just holding someone's hand, just the act of kindness of holding someone's hand during that time, the profound effect. I still remember that time where an individual, I just held her hand. It wasn't really experience like trying to do the Reiki, but just holding her hand.
Mhm.
And she didn't have a lot of support and a lot of faith at that time. And I still remember that moment. And just those small acts of kindness and love sending out, you just don't know what we can do. We're so powerful that way. I think we tend to forget that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We do. And, that ripple effect is amazing. Like, we don't even know what that, holding her hand did for her, and how she impacted, the rest of the people around her. So people just want to be loved. They
Yeah.
want to be accepted.
So how do
Yeah.
we change this? How do, like, I mean, you work with spirit on a daily basis. So how do
Mhm.
we really change this? I mean, as individuals, I know it's basically the individual has to start with themselves and kind of go within and start changing. But how do we do this on a larger scale?
Well, when I
I,
do my larger events, it's like it's my time. I can say what I want. So, as I'm kind of walking throughout the audience, and I, am talking to people and sharing with them what spirit has to say, and then I start to talk about this concept that we're talking about now. And if every single person in that room decided to volunteer their time, even if they didn't have the money, even if it wasn't, reading to kids for an hour a day or mowing somebody's lawn, like if we all did those kind of random acts of kindness, think about just in that one room, if everyone did one thing, how different our world would be. And so that message is kind of woven within every event that I do, to really inspire people to make a difference. We all have a gift, we all have a talent. No matter who you are, we have something to give. And so, I talk about it, during Message Mondays. I feel like I try as much as I can to influence people to get inspired to really make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful, and I think if when you inspire and you get that spark within somebody, because it's always there. I always say it's always there. It's just covered by the junk and muddle stuff of our lives, and the past experiences, and we just kind of bury it. And but that's that little spark, and you kind of open that spark up. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
now, and then the light kind of goes off, and then their own internal light starts shining through, and I really appreciate you, really inspiring people to do that. And have you got any really feedback from your events on like some of the crazy stuff that you do? You probably get that during Message Mondays. Like,
Yeah. Like feedback about like their experiences.
well, their experiences, but also like, doing those random acts of kindness. So like, you inspired me. I said the other day, I just decided to volunteer at the local food shelter or something.
Yeah. So people post about it because I'm kind of big on talking about it. So they'll post like, this is what like when I'm talking about it, they'll actually post like in the chats, like I do this, like I crochet blankets, I, you know, work with cancer patients, I, volunteer babysat for my next door neighbor who's a single parent. And so, yeah, people get really inspired by it. Sometimes it's just a suggestion. Like people have this idea, some people, that they have nothing to give. Like they have this idea, like, you know, what could I possibly give? I have nothing to give. I'm feeling so stretched. I'm feeling whatever. And so, but there is something for all of us to give at some point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
mhm.
that's so true. I find a lot of people like that. It's like, what can I do? I don't have any special gifts. And it's like, yeah, you do. Like, yeah, it just being you yourself and being kind. Like a lot of people don't even realize that. And I always like to say, so what do you like to do for fun? And when I say when I talk about volunteering myself, it doesn't have to always be something extreme. Like people think that you have to work with cancer patients. If working for cancer patient is not your thing, don't do it. Like, come on, like obviously. But if it's something that you love to do, perfect. But there could be other things like maybe you're a great cook. Maybe you can work out of the food shelter, or maybe you like animals, maybe work for a wildlife company, stuff like that, or a conservation company, like being outdoors. If you love being outdoors, there's lots of places that need volunteers that need help. So it's not always something you have to do something extreme, like, oh, well, if you're not working with, the elderly, or you're working with something else, they're going to judge you. Like, there's just that stigma sometimes to come around volunteer work, and people kind of like to, um, I always say, just give what you can. And if it's not time, if you have money, that's perfect too, because people need that too as well. So if you don't have a particular time or gift, if you got cash, lots of organizations need cash too as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, something as simple as giving a single mom a couple hours of time to herself by babysitting her kids, maybe like your next door neighbor, or, you know, um, just little things that you can do, donate books to your local library. Like there's so many things. There's so many things you can do.
Yeah. And I think people get stuck on that. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Mhm.
Um, one of the things I want to ask you about too, I know you talked about your Heaven Can Wait course. Are there any other courses that you're doing right now, or that you maybe touch on?
Well, I'm in the middle of, filming and creating courses. So, yeah.
Nice.
So they're mediumship classes, like a mediumship kind of 1, 2, 3 level. I've been teaching those mediumship classes for years, but I've never actually like put them online. Like I teach them in person. So it's just kind of putting it together and making it, so it can other people can access it if they can't come to a class with
Okay.
me. And then I'm really big on teaching people how to connect for themselves. So I have a Connecting to Heaven course that is done. Hopefully it will be out soon. And that course is really for the average person. What can they do to connect for themselves so they can start to feel a connection without a medium, just for themselves?
Yeah.
Mm.
That's the one thing, I've heard for so many mediums. Like, and most people think, why would you teach somebody to do that? Like, aren't you just cutting into your business? And it's like, well, no, it's like, it's really about the love and connecting people and helping people connect. Like, that's the great thing because I think we're all made to connect. We're all here for guidance. We all have the same systems. We still have the same nervous system. We have the same brain and eyes and all that stuff. We're all here and we have the ability to connect. It just like I always say like I use the analogy that we can all learn to drive a car, but not everybody's going to be a race car driver.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I talk about that kind of the same thing as like we can, somebody can learn the piano and play this beautiful song. But if I tried to learn how to play the piano, I'm sure I could if I really tried, but I probably wouldn't ever be able to be like a pianist, like a concert pianist. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's as long as you understand that when you go into it, but I think it's so profound when people do connect, like, and then their lives just change because now they just open up to a whole new other world. Like
mhm.
before it was like sometimes there's always that grief and sometimes they get stuck in that. But once you give them that little empowerment that they can kind of connect on a daily basis, and then it just kind of just everything just changes with them.
Yeah, it is powerful.
Yeah, very, very
Really
powerful.
powerful.
Now I hear you got a book coming up too as well.
So it has some of those crazy stories in it that I've told you. I have hundreds of them. And so I've collected kind of the best of those stories and, just stuff that it's like, you just can't make it up, right? And like the crazy stuff that spirit does. And because I'm surrounded by it every day, like they always surprise me. Like every day I'm like, no way. Like that's unbelievable. Like even me, even though I see it all the time, I still get inspired and surprised by spirit.
All right, you got to give me
So,
one more story. You got to give me one more story. Okay, we got the quarters dropping on your head. Like, well, hey, give me another story.
okay. So, this is one that I really love. And so this was kind of back when I would do like parties in people's homes, like when in 2012, right? Or 13. So, I was at this kind of home party and all these people were sitting around and I start bringing through this lady and they're like, oh my God, like that sounds like Aunt Jenny, but she's still alive. Like she's in a hospital in Vancouver, but she's not expected to die. Like, and I just kept talking about her and I kind of just said, well, maybe spirit's telling me about her. Like, I don't, like, I was kind of confused. And then we had a break. And I guess at the break, they didn't tell me this, but she had passed away.
No.
Like, during that reading, she had passed away, and they texted a couple of the family members that were sitting there. And so after the break, the family members didn't tell me, but were like, can you talk about her again? Like they just wanted to see, like, I just want to see what she has to say, kind of thing. And then at the end of the night, they told me she actually had passed away in the middle of the group reading.
Wow, that's
So
profound.
So when people say to me, like, how long, does it take people time to kind of settle in? I think it's a really complicated question because there's so many different factors. But I've said to people, I've talked to somebody who's been gone for 15 minutes and I've talked to somebody who's been gone for 50 years. So
Yeah,
time is,
there's no time and space on the other side, really,
time is
anyways.
irrelevant.
Yeah.
But, I also feel like a person like I've been through grief that, um, it sometimes you need some time. There's like this shock and awe phase when you've had a really significant loss and you're kind of in a haze. Like it's really hard to kind of get your bearings about you, hard to believe that this is your new reality. And so I feel like when you're in that phase, sometimes a medium reading isn't helpful. Like it can't penetrate you the same way.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, it's okay to wait. And I remember, with my own loss, um, because obviously I can connect, but I wanted an experience with a medium because I wanted a medium to kind of reflect to me. But I didn't book a medium reading for till a year and a half later. Like,
Wow.
so yeah.
Yeah, when you're ready, you're ready. And
Yeah.
I think intuitively most people know when they're ready. Like you said, like there's that kind of period where, for some people, yeah, you're in the still shock and awe. Like it's so devastating. Like you're in the denial state, and you're bouncing all over the place between anger, denial, and back and forth. And you're kind of
Mhm.
happy one day, and then the next day you're miserable. And so like when you can't get settled,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's hard to like that. When I think any information, when you're in a state of grief or just sadness or anger, you just can't receive that information. And
Yeah, not the same
yeah, that's
for
the
sure.
same. Well, Lisa, we're almost out of time.
Yeah, that was great. It was so
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, I'm really happy that you came on the show today. So, if people are looking to book a reading, a group reading, to find all your courses that are coming up and your new
Mhm.
book coming up, where can they find you?
So canadianmedium.com.
Canadianmedium.com.
Yeah.
Instagram
At Lisa Scrivens Medium.
and Facebook.
Canadian Medium at Canadian Medium. Yeah.
All right. So I'll have all that information in the description below. So if you're watching this video on the old YouTube there, yeah, just check down in the description below. But if you're listening on Apple and Spotify too as well, it will be in the description. You just got to go a little bit past the title there, and you'll see Lisa's information there. And I just want to say thank you again, Lisa. It was lots of fun.
It was lots of fun. I really enjoyed this.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you did. And I know you're very, very popular now. I think you're going to get even more popular once this whole COVID thing kind of gets out of the way and you start touring again. You know, I think you'll be doing that world tour for sure.
Who knows?
I think so. I have a feeling. I have a feeling you're going to be doing a world tour. Yeah, for sure. But that being said, Lisa, I'm just going to close off the podcast here. So this has been the Metaphysical Mentor podcast with Michael Philpott. Thank you so much for joining me, and goodbye for now.